Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Day of the Video Diary. How's it going today? Today, it's the morning. I messed up this morning. I got up late. I got up at 25 to 7. I normally get up at 6:15. So, I think potentially an earlier night than normal tonight, which probably means before 12 o'clock, just to set me back. It's because I stayed up late on Sunday as well. So I've had 3 days straight of staying up really late, and this morning Laura went out for a run at like quarter to 6, so she didn't get back until so my alarm went off, I snoozed it, and she wasn't around for her alarm to start going off, because her alarm went off prior to mine. So that was a bit of cock up, but after just reorganising the way I get ready in the morning, i.e. changing the time I have a shower, figuring out when I get dressed and all that kind of stuff, I managed to get here early again, so that's good. Otherwise though, the game plan for today is to try and figure out where it is that this bug is appearing and try and fix it. That's my plan. And also, lunchtime I'm going to be finishing off my project, or my sub-project of my project, and then when I get home I'm going to be starting my new project. Woo! So excited. And ladies and gentlemen, we are back. How's it going? I actually left a little bit late today. My boss and his boss came over and had a chinwag with me, just as I was about to leave. I ended up having to hang back 15 minutes, and then my boss stood around and was showing me something he should have showed me yesterday, which would have simplified today drastically. And then he was like, "Oh, when are you supposed to leave?" And I was like, "Oh, well, 10 minutes ago, but it don't matter." And he goes, "Oh, no, go. Oh, we can do this tomorrow." Well, okay, cool. So, otherwise, what's been going on today? Today, I managed to figure out how to run my code. I'm trying to figure out how this live stream works as well. I keep having to refresh. Oh no. I managed to get my code running. It turns out the exceptions that were being thrown by Eclipse, which was running out of memory because it was producing so many logs that the thing just broke in the end. So that was irritating, but I managed to fix it by basically setting a buffer size, because it was on unlimited, and eventually it would run out of memory for the entire computer, at which point shit hits the fan. So I set a limit on that, got it running, got it sorted. The entire process takes about 2 hours to get to the point that I wanted to get to, and then the process I actually wanted to test took 2 hours as well. But once I'd managed to run it once, I knew the information I needed to provide it so that I could basically create a test harness which could cut out the first 2 hours. And then I created a test harness and then walked through the logic, trying to figure out what it is it's doing. Essentially what we have is a scenario where something is taking 2 hours to apply simple things to a huge list of stuff, and we want it to do just one. We do it to one and then apply to all. So you do one huge batch update rather than thousands of tiny small ones, which should be a lot faster, especially considering the way that it's designed. It decides what it needs to do every single time, which involves pulling a fuckload of data from the database, walking through it all, and all that kind of crap. So that is good fun. But yes, I managed to get there, so I've managed to exclude, from what I know, it never runs into this chunk of code. I left it running properly as I left, so that I didn't have to sit there for 2 hours. Left it running that on that thing, so when I go back, if it's hit certain breakpoints, I'll know if it ever touched a certain section of code, which is useful, because then I can basically go, right, so basically all it's doing is this. So yeah, because obviously I don't want to change the functionality of it, and I don't want to duplicate the functionality anywhere else. I want to make sure that certain things happen and all that kind of malarkey. And I believe that my boss's boss was essentially came over, and I'd never seen him before, and he's trying to explain the kind of what he wants, and I'm like, yeah, but I can't guarantee that doesn't have a negative consequence, so I'm not going to do it until I know that it won't. So I don't know for a fact that it never hits any of this code chunk. I know that yesterday's didn't hit any of that code chunk, but I don't know for a fact that nothing else ever will. So I can't just basically rewrite it to get rid of that code chunk, because what if it's essential? Then there's no tests to figure out if it is or not. But apparently that's where this other thing can come in handy. So there's that. Otherwise, lunchtime, I spent doing a little bit of programming. again, I didn't get to spend as much as I wanted to, because it seems to be every time I want to do something that isn't work, i.e. working on my own project, or working on or leaving, someone comes over and talks to me. But I've got it now sorted. There was one more piece of information that I need to thread in, which I forgot about, which is the solution ID. So I'm going to have a look into getting that done, and then I also need to double check that the way that I'm doing my file location works. I know I have a feeling that it does, because I've used it before elsewhere. It's just not formatted very nicely, so I might change the way that it works so it formats it a little bit nicer. And then I'm going to move on to my next project, which I've been trying to name all day. I've been trying to name it, and I think I've come up with an idea. I don't know. I've just realised, do I do this a lot? I was just doing that in the last thing. I'm just like that, just like... Do I do that all the time? Should I? Probably not. I seem to see that as a thumbnail more often than not. So yeah, otherwise I'm waiting for Laura to leave town again. She's like having some drinks with a friend in the town centre. So I'm waiting for her to come back, basically. So she's got more friends than I do, man. It's ridiculous. Alright, I need a drink because I'm really thirsty. Ladies and gentlemen, my tasks for this... I've just stopped my timer. My tasks for this programming section is done. I'm getting that Slack telling me that my build's successful. Thanks, Slack. I'm actually kind of waiting for Laura to text me. She hasn't texted me all day. I'm hoping she's okay. I've been texting her all day and she hasn't replied once. Anyway, so I've got that all sorted. The source section of my code is all done. What I'm thinking of doing is I'm thinking of adding in my ability to do to support both .NET Core and the original thingy now, because I can add that into my app settings relatively simply. It's the kind of setting which I will allow. I'm not going to ask the user to input it every single time. It's the kind of thing that gets defaulted in the system, and then the user is able to change it later, although that functionality doesn't actually exist. I'm going to allow the user to change the app settings via the interfaces. But I'm thinking of adding that into the core configuration files, because at the moment it only supports .NET Core. I chose to support .NET Core rather than .NET, the old .NET. It's very simple. I could literally just change a thing. Which means if I give it an old one, a .NET thingy one, the old .NET, whatever the fuck that was called, 4.6 or something, or 4.3, it will not support it. It'll throw exceptions. So I'm thinking of adding that in, because it's a relatively simple thing to add, and then it's just something I can think about moving forward rather than thinking. And it also means that I don't start work on the next... I'm trying to delay starting work on the next, like, leg of the work, because I'm going on holiday. So, you know what I mean? But I'm going to tear myself away from this, and I'm going to start looking at making an app. I'm also partially watching this as this goes by. I haven't decided on a name for this app. That's the thing. I don't want to start the project until I've thought of a good name. So I was going to try and run it through Laura, but Laura's dropped off the face video. She's alive and she's on her way back. Happy days! Right, which means I'm going to have to start cooking at some point. I say cooking. So I'm going to sit and I'm going to think about names and methods of doing this app settings thing. I think I know how I want to do it, but we'll see. What are you doing? Hey Graham? What are you doing? And ladies and gentlemen, it's time for bed. We had dinner, which was Thai curry. It's not time for bed because I've got to do that. Ah, dear. We had Thai curry for dinner, which was lovely. And we sorted out... What else did we do? I've got to do this then. Basically, we haven't really done much. I had a relatively chilled out evening. I figured out a name for my project. I've got it all set up. I've just got like... Oh gosh! I set up like default, bloody hell, of the default project, like an empty project and stuff on Visual Studio on my laptop in an attempt to see if I could get it running so that I could do it at work. Problem is, the emulator takes, well, I assume I could probably reduce the amount of RAM that it takes, but it essentially runs as a virtual machine. It boots up a virtual machine, and my Surface Book struggles for RAM. I've only got 8 gig. I only got 8 gig. 8 gig is a decent amount of RAM. But everything is 6 gigs up until the point. You alright, bud? Yeah, like Visual Studio and Chrome and stuff, and all that kind of malarkey that I had set up as I was going through tutorials, already gets me to 6 gig, and then the emulator takes 2. So I was struggling there. But I haven't really spent a decent amount of time looking at it. I literally like logged 20 minutes to the task tonight because we watched Britain's Got Talent. Not Britain's Got Talent. Fucking hell, I ain't seen that in years. Great British Bake Off, which is always really good. And then I did some work, watched a couple of YouTube videos, watched the news. I'm heading to bed early because I woke up late this morning. And technically today, because of logging an hour and whatever this morning, I'm still ahead of schedule. It's tomorrow that's going to get hit because most of my time gets logged, like overnight at midnight and stuff. But yeah, so today I've only logged 2 hours and 30 minutes. But 2 hours to my main project, and then I've got my other project. I do understand how irritating it can be, me being semi-quiet about things. This new project isn't going to be as quiet as my main one. It's less, like it's going to be something that will just be like it's an app. It's not a, I'm not going to like build a website and have stuff around it, whereas everything else is a little bit more thingy. So I'll probably start talking about it like naturally over time. It depends, because I realise there's a lot of things in my life that I don't tell you about anymore. Kind of defeats the object. But yeah, otherwise it's bedtime, except for hanging up this washing. Cool. Tomorrow, more of the same. Hopefully debug this thing, figure out what's going on, hopefully put in a fix, and then do my project, do that thing where I can support multiple frameworks lunchtime and in the evening, and then I feel like most of my mobile app development is going to be done on the old Atlas. So I've got more RAM and stuff, so that might be how I time box the differences. But we'll see. Wait, I gotta go, so I'll catch you later.